Hello, my name is Molly, and in this presentation, I'm focusing on drug-related crime and how two criminological theories, which is strain theory and social learning theory, help explain why it happens. Now, drug-related crime is a major issue in the justice system because it affects individuals, families, and entire communities. It's also a problem that doesn't just have one cause. Addiction, environment, stress, and social influence all play a role, which is why I'm using more than one theory, and that gives us a more clear picture. Today, I'm going to explain how these two theories work, how they connect, and how combining them leads to better prevention strategies. I'll also show an example, a simple visual that maps out how strain and social learning interact to produce drug related crime. The first theory I'm using is strain theory. And strain theory says that people experience pressure, stress, or blocked opportunities that can create negative emotions. When someone feels trapped or overwhelmed and doesn't have healthy coping options, crime can start to feel like it's a way out. Now, for drug related crime, strain shows up in a lot of different ways. That can be poverty or unstable housing, trauma or chronic stress, a lack of access to treatment, withdrawal symptoms, family conflict, and unemployment or financial pressure. Imagine someone dealing with addiction who can't find work, doesn't have support, and is constantly stressed. That strain builds up. Crime, like stealing to buy drugs, selling drugs to survive, or committing offenses while under the influence, can feel like the only option. Strain theory helps explain why the pressure builds and why crime becomes more of a coping mechanism for people dealing with addiction. So, the second theory is social learning theory, and this theory focuses on how people learn behavior from the people around them. Crime isn't just emotional, it's taught, it's modeled, it's reinforced, and normalized through social interactions. For drug related crime, this can be spending time with peers who use or sell drugs, learning techniques for dealing or theft, being rewarded or praised for deviant behavior, hearing justifications like, everyone does it, or I had no choice, normalizing drug use as a part of daily life. So, if someone's environment is full of people who use drugs, commit crimes, or justify those behaviors, it's easier to adopt those same patterns. Social learning theory explains how individuals learn criminal behavior and why certain environments make drug related crime more likely. Now, when you combine strain theory and social learning theory, you get a much fuller understanding of drug related crime. Now, here's how they can work together. Strain creates the emotional pressure and desperation. That leads to weak social bonds, makes conventional coping harder, which leads to social learning, providing the techniques, the models, and justifications for crime. Together, they explain both the motivation and the method behind drug related crime. So instead of seeing drug related crime as just a personal failure or a social influence, the integrated approach shows that it's the interaction between personal stress and social environments. Here is a visual I created to show how these theories connect. It's a simple flowchart. Strain leads to negative emotions lead to weak bonds lead to peer influence leads to learned criminal behavior, and learned criminal behavior leads to drug related crime. This graph just shows how strain starts the process and social learning continues. In my presentation, I'll display this chart and refer to it as I explain the sequence. Now, policy prevention plan. Using both theories, we can build a stronger prevention plan that addresses the emotional pressure and the social environment. So, to reduce the strain, let's expand access to addiction treatment, provide housing, stability programs, we can offer trauma informed counseling, and we can increase employment support for people in recovery. These strategies reduce the pressure that pushes people towards crime. Now, to interrupt social learning of crime, peer mentorship programs with sober role models, community centers offering safe, pro social environments, group therapy that challenges criminal norms, and programs that reward positive behavior instead of deviant behavior. These strategies change the environment so people aren't learning criminal behavior from peers. The combined impact by reducing strain and changing the social environment, we address both the emotional and social roots of drug related crime. This integrated approach is more realistic and more effective than just relying on one theory. Working with two theories helped me see how complex drug related crime really is. Strain theory explains the emotional and the structural pressures people face, while social learning theory shows how crime becomes normalized and reinforced. Integrating theories gives us better prevention strategies because it addresses both the why and the how. Behind criminal behavior, it leads to more compassionate, practical solutions for individuals dealing with addiction and helps us design interventions that match the real world causes of drug related crime. And thank you for listening today.